tourists who are more interested on stories, the stories of the place, the stories of the people, the struggles and how people of that particular place was able to push through, was able to move forward. So, I'm very happy with the Leyte Samar Heritage Society because I know that part of their goal or part of their aim as an organization is to preserve these stories for us to tell for the rest of our life, for our children and our children's children to tell. Because even if time will erase us, we will not be here for the rest of our life. We want these stories to continue because without the people who fought for this, for whatever we have today, we will not be here today. So I congratulate the Leyte Samar Heritage Society for always being active in the preservation of our stories and histories. And I believe that they're also trying to find ways on how they can also work with the province because the province also, Ma'am Joyce, has a lot of projects and activities that has something to do with our stories as well. Especially our tour guides who needs to be educated properly. Hindi lang sinabi ng lola ko or ng lolo ko. Not just, what they heard from their grandparents. But then again, there's a lot of work to do and I'm very happy to be part of this program.
Good morning to all of us. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Hello. Hi. Masyadong wala pang tulusal yata kung ang bisita natin. Anyway, I'll make it quick. But before anything else, I'd like to greet, of course, duluhan natin nga Monsignor Aliana, Monsignor Managilos, of course, giving us a briefer of what's about to come in the next few days. And pareho nila historian, Monsignor Gilbert Obina gihapon, anaton din sa Kapulog amo lagihap. Monsignor Ramon Aguilos, pure history, formal, pero kung gusto niyo yung Marites, Monsignor Gilbert Obina. Former Mayor Ann Petillas, of course, she's handling the tourism right now because when she was a mayor, iya asawa din susubo-subula, yan na inuutos-utusan ko na siya, bumabawi lang. Honorable Regalado Trota Jose Jr., Chairman, National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Professor Bernard Leo Carganilla, the Corporate Secretary of Hunters ROTC Historical Society. Mina Watanabe at the Women's Active Museum in Tokyo. Oh, you have a women's museum. We do not even have a men's museum here. Professor Joyce Dorado Alegre, the President of the Leyte Samar Heritage Society. Professor Ricardo Cortez Jose, Professor Emeritus of the Department of History of UP Diliman. To all our guests again, a pleasant good morning to all of us. I do not have any speech to give you, but I have stories. Alam mo kami ni Ann, mahilig kami mag-segue. Hindi segue na iniiwasan ang istorya. Segue as in segue. When we travel, we always look for, is there a segue tour? Why? Because in a 3-hour Segway tour, you basically cover the entire city. Then after the Segway, you now focus on the things you want to see. The museum, historical sites, and that's how we do it. Because we really got interested with history maybe 20 years ago. We got interested on the history of the different parts of this world. When we went to Rome, for example, it just so happened that our tour guide was a history teacher. When the history teacher was giving us a tour, very, very detailed, and then when we were resting beside a basilica, I said, oh, this is a basilica. It's a church. Then she corrected us. Actually, basilica were actually public places where people hold debates, where people gather. And then, why is it now a church? Because during the time, the fall of the Roman Empire, naubusan sila ng pera. They started selling. And who do you think was the richest organization then? The church. So lahat ng basilica, binili nila and turned it into a place of religious significance. I didn't know that kung wala yung history teacher na yun. We went to Vienna also, and our tour guide was sick. She was replaced by the boyfriend who's a curator of the Vienna Museum. Again, talking about the First Reich, the Second Reich, and the Third Reich. Okay, because of course this is in Prussia area. Very informative. We went to Athens, and then only to find out in the museum also that the missing pieces of the artifacts that they had was actually in the British Museum. Kaya during pre-World War I, I think, some of the artifacts, kasi baka masira lang sa gera, dinala sa Britain ng mga British archaeologists, and they never returned it back. And then, pagpunta namin sa Louvre, I was also surprised that the Nike, the goddess of victory, was actually there, not in Greece. And when we went to Vatican, I realized that it's not only religious artifacts. Actually, the Vatican Museum is a full museum. Nandun pa rin ang mga artifacts ng Japanese mummies, kung tutusin. Even the ones in Egypt. So sabi ko, why? Because during the time, Roman Empire was actually big. Everything that they got from different countries, inuwi nila, and it ended in the Vatican. So ang conclusion ko nga minsan, sabi ko kahapon, the museum, my description is a place where you put stolen items legally. Hanggang ngayon, yung mga artifacts sa Athens, ayaw pa rin ibalik ng mga British papunta sa Greece. But, in a way, it's preservation of the artifacts to make sure that the ones responsible in keeping them are responsible enough to actually preserve them. So, again, excuse for having a museum. We don't have a museum here, but one of these days, magkakaroon rin tayo ng museum very, very soon, because the old Capitol is going to be converted into a museum, because hanggang ngayon, would you believe, my table in the Capitol is the table of General Douglas MacArthur. My chair also used to be the chair of General Douglas MacArthur when he came back here. And I don't put it on the basement because it will just rot and get destroyed. I have to use it because we don't have a museum. You go to Lulan and Tolosa, they have artifacts. Still, nandun sa mga bahay, tinago ng lolo ang mga coins, ang mga kantin, ang mga knives. Pero ang mga anak, wala nang pakialam. Lalo na yung apo. Baka ipatimbang na lang ito. We need a place where we will have to put stolen items also for purposes of history and tradition. And then, these are museums. We tour around using Segway as well. We went to Paris, and again, our tour guide was actually a historian. Sinasabi niya, here in Paris, during the time when there was the French Revolution, they had to cut the heads of many people off with their heads. And they were cutting so many heads that the axe was not doing an efficient way of killing people. That's why they imported technology from Ireland. It's called guillotine.
Irish and
A more efficient way of cutting heads. So it's not actually from France. I didn't even know that. Again, because we go around, we learn, people tell stories, you realize the interconnection of the different societies and culture. We have an office my wife and I, we have a BPO. It's 35 years old. 35 years old. I started this company when I was 10 years old. But we have an office, a 14-year-old office in Bosnia-Herzegovina in Sarajevo. It's 1.5 hours away from Medjugorje, Monsignor. And in Sarajevo, if you look at the history, their history is all about war. World War I was started in Sarajevo. Okay? And they even have the same car na sinakyan ng isang prince when he was assassinated. It's still there right now. And then, there was a Bosnian War in 1992 to 1995 where there was a genocide. Ganon rin, they preserved the bullet holes and the tunnels because that is their history and that is also their tourism. Saan ka nakakita ng tourism na patayan lahat? Pero there are some Roman stories also. Pero it helps tourism, it also preserves the stories. Tourism actually is a way of actually preserving the stories.